Hello, and welcome to the Dental Speaker Podcast. I'm your host, Vanessa Emerson, founder of the Dental Speaker and Dental Speaker Institute. And I am so excited to be here with a dear friend of mine, Dr. BJ Moorhead. BJ, it's always great to spend time with you. Thanks for being here.
I'm so glad to be here, and friend describes it well. We've been friends for a long time.
Lots of years. I was trying to think this morning. I'm sure it's been at least a decade. But so I had asked Dr. Moorhead to be with us here today to address some really important topics that are important for speakers as well as meeting planners. And so we're going to be discussing what a speaker can do to really catch the attention of a meeting planner and a scout, and how to improve your chances of being booked. But before we do that, let me share with you a little bit of information about why I asked BJ to be here with us today. So BJ, I don't know how many years you've been speaking. Has it been a couple dozen?
I've been speaking 10 or 11 years.
So a little over a decade, which is
Yes.
a lot of years. And you have a really impressive CV around the leadership roles that you've had in our industry, especially around state and local organized, associations. You have a long list of fellowships. It's really impressive. And so from the clinical standpoint, very impressive. And then also I know on the speaking and consulting side, you're known affectionately as Dr. Checklist, which is fun, which is because you, well, first of all, StreamDent is something that has come from that, right? We see the streamlined practice up there, and StreamDent is your software solution that helps dental practices be able to streamline through efficiencies. And there are multiple topics that you speak about, including the medical emergencies and treating anxious patients and dental technology. And it's like you're just such a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of experience. And I think for the purpose of today, on this topic, I'm really leaning into your leadership roles and the many years that you've been either president of a state association or involved in scouting, and really wanting to draw from your experience to be able to share with our colleagues some tips that could help them be able to improve their success. So
Certainly.
thank you so much for being here and sharing this. And I should share too that you shared this topic with us at it's an exclusive event that we hold just for Dental Speaker Institute members earlier this year. And it was so impressive that I had asked Dr. Moorhead to come and share with the masses here to be able to bring it beyond the walls of our Dental Speaker Institute. So
Earlier this year, I shared 30 minutes worth of material in 15 minutes.
yeah. And we'll have as much time as you'd like today, because this is
Okay.
really, really good content for our colleagues to hear. So with that in mind, let's just get started with, a brief introduction around like your background in scouting.
I started in 2009. I was in the track to become president of the Kentucky Dental Association 4 or 5 years later. And I've always been a continuing education junkie. And so looking at the meeting planner side fit me really well. It gave me a chance to connect with speakers, hear the latest and greatest pretty much constantly. I was in charge of my first meeting in 2012, and I think I counted that I had scouted something like 10 meetings to prepare for that. And this is for Kentucky Dental Association. We're a small association. We had at the time about, I think, 1,600 members. And we didn't have a huge budget for doing scouting. So they paid for about 3 meetings for me to go to, and the rest were on my own, but I thoroughly enjoyed them. And when I got into this, the speaking bug bit me.
Yeah. It really is addictive, isn't it? I mean, it feels good. It feels good to give back. I mean, but that's fabulous. Well, what did you learn along the way as a scout? Could you share with us some of the best ways to attract the attention of a scout? And maybe we should even define what a scout is for those who might be newer.
A scout or a meeting planner is the ladies and gentlemen, usually doctors, some staff members from dental associations and components that are going from room to room, watching you speak to assess your abilities, to assess your charisma, to assess how the audience is responding to you. We're looking to see how you would most likely draw at our dental meeting. We're the people that hire.
Right, right. And, so I've been scouted myself at a large dental meeting, and it's a unique experience. And I would love for you to share, like, what might that feel like if you're at the front of the stage speaking? Like, how do you know there's a scout in the room or scouts?
You see 1, 2, 3, or 4 people come in. They are usually holding a notepad of some sort or a tablet, and you see them looking up and taking notes, and sometimes whispering back and forth between each other.
I found, in my experience with that, they would even sometimes walk halfway up the wall. I thought that was interesting, like halfway up this big room with a couple hundred people, and they were kind of assessing, like, what was the audience doing during that experience as well. I thought that was interesting.
We want to see faces of audience. We want to see if people are on their phones looking up the references that the speaker talks about, or if they're on their phones because they're bored.
Facebook or like Tetris.
Yes, yeah. This is not a good sign to see in the audience. This number right here. Okay.
Yeah. And it is a little nerve-wracking when a scout comes in, but that's probably a whole nother conversation, because there's definitely strategies that speakers can employ to kind of save an exercise or something, a really interactive part of their presentation, so that when scouts are in the room, they can pull that out of their hip pocket and impress. But that's kind of maybe that's coming up in your presentation, or maybe that's a whole nother topic. But
well, I will have to say, we've a typical dental meeting, the presentations are going 2.5, 3 hours. And if you come in at 9:15 and you're still hearing the speaker give the introduction, it's a bad sign that they don't have enough material.
Right. Yeah, there are multiple things to watch for. Let's get into that. So, what are some of the best ways then to attract the attention of a scout?
Interact with the audience. Interaction that keeps the audience's attention. You've got to have the stage skills. You've got to have the verbal presence. Monotonous voices don't work, but there's got to be a balance. Okay. Someone that's tethered to the podium, staring at their screen because they don't know their materials, they're not going to interact, and they're not going to draw in the audience. If you're a dentist, a dental person sitting in that audience, what does Margie Schaller teach us? That the average attention span of an American now is a second less than a goldfish. So you've got to have the material, and you got to have the skills to be able to keep the audience attention drawn in. You've got to have something compelling. You got to have something new. It can't be stale. And the audience definitely doesn't want a history lesson. They don't want to hear what was done 20, 30 years ago, unless it's a quick reference to be able to get to, here's what we've got now, and here's why you want to do it differently.
That's interesting too. I hadn't thought about that. What I'm hearing you say is engagement, right? Like the good, extremely great, good content and new content, and then engagement. What about before the actual speech? What can we do as speakers to catch the attention of a meeting planner or a scout before we're even in the room to get booked?
Help me with, at what stage are we talking
as far as like a title, or like, what are you
Okay.
looking for?
When you're sending information to the dental meeting, you know that you're more likely to get hired if you've got a compelling title. It's a lot more likely that the audience is going to sign up if you've got a compelling title. But there's also space constraints. So if you send something that is 30 miles long for a title, and it's going to get edited, it might not get edited in your favor. So think about that. Think about when you're asked to give bullet points or whatever, think about what the meeting planner has asked you for in terms of number of characters, and pay attention to it, because you don't want somebody else making those decisions for you.
Right. So would a good rule of thumb be kind of like a subject line, like 7 to 8 words as a title? Like, is it like just pretty short? Would you think, like, what would we consider? I mean, like,
It
just
would
not
depend. It would
lines.
depend on the publication, but it does. But you don't want it to go on and on and on and on. If it is something that's a little longer, there needs to be a reason why.
Yeah. And know that it might get.
Not because you wanted to be able to cover all 10 subjects that you're trying to be able to clumsily work into the presentation.
Well, and what about our course description? So like there's the title, but what about the course description? What do you look for there?
Course description, we've got the same constraints as far as the amount of space, but you're the same way that you're going to try to get the meeting planner's attention, you're trying to get the speaker's attention or get the audience's attention too. The two go hand in hand.
So again, a clear, kind of short, concise, meaty, but not gratuitous, like keep it short.
To the point, yes. Yes.
To the point, easy for them to scan. Do you have any thoughts on the bullet points, or are those pretty straightforward based on like CE guidelines with the bullet points, the learning objectives? Any thoughts on same?
I'm fortunate that when I put my speaking packet together, the first speaking packet I ever had, I used a model of a speaker that I have so much respect for named Catherine Eitel. And by interesting coincidence, the lady that put her speaking packet together was her virtual assistant at the time. I think her name was Vanessa Emerson.
So sad.
Yeah, and so I put together originally a Word document that was converted into PDF that had the bullet points, and then later I hired Vanessa to do my professional speaker packet. And first of all, if you haven't had Vanessa's expertise, it's a no-brainer. She will guide you. But to answer your question specifically, yeah, you want to use the basic guidelines that you were taught in the college classes.
Like, and measurable verbs, and there's Bloom's, I think it is. Yeah. The ways that we break down our different levels of learning. Okay, awesome.
There is a disadvantage that we as dental people have in this arena, because with education majors, they're taught that. As a matter of fact, for grade school to high school level, absolutely, they're not going to get a degree unless they know that stuff. But for dentists that get into the speaking arena, most dentists have never studied any education type format. Most dental professors likewise. So this is where someone with your expertise comes in.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. Yes, I think so too. And then I want to give a shout out to Sandra Berger, is another person in our community who is really exceptional in this area as well, as far as helping people with being able to become certified, approved. Is that the right word? Certified? That feels funny to me right now, but certified to be able to give CE. And that's where how you write your course description and your bullet points really does make a difference. But we're kind of segueing off of our topic, so I'm going to bring us back around to, from the meeting planner's view.
Okay.
Talk to me about contracts. What are your thoughts on contracts? Like that we need to know as speakers.
When a organization negotiates a contract, and I am going to try to speak from both the small meeting that I have been associated with and larger meetings, you're going to have different settings for contracts. Some are going to say, take it or leave it. This is the only way we do it. Some are more negotiable. For my meetings, we had generally, and I said had past tense, asked a speaker to speak it, do 2 3-hour presentations. We schedule in Kentucky 2 days of CE for our annual meeting on all day Friday and Saturday. Because of the cost of bringing people there, we're trying more to be able to get speakers to do 3 presentations when they will. I was at the HIMA meeting lately, like middle of March 2023, and I had a couple of speaker friends tell me that they had been asked to do 5 presentations in 3 days.
Wow. A 2 to 3 hour presentation?
I'm certain that part of those would have been 1-hour things that,
1 hours.
within the tracks of things. But what you ask for in terms of honorarium in negotiating a contract and what an organization has even available can be night and day difference.
Yeah.
And that's where sponsorships have to fill a large role. Before we talk about sponsorships, though, to do with contract negotiations, once you agree to something, let me mention one other thing.
Yeah, sure.
If you want to put out a proposed, as a speaker, if you want to put out a proposed contract, please consider it a proposal, because the group that's hiring you is the organization. They're going to very likely have their templates. If you're speaking to a small study club, a small component, that could be entirely different, and your contract may be appropriate. But for most state associations, regional meetings, whatever, if you as a speaker have to have what's in your contract, it may keep you from getting hired.
Mhm. Flexibility, right?
Flexibility, yes.
I often remind speakers that, yes, we want to be paid to speak. And there are many ways to get value from that, even if I think it's important to establish your honorarium, but sometimes we will speak for less than that. But I think if we quote, as a meeting planner, would you agree, like it would be important to quote the same fee to everyone? But there'll be some situations, like maybe the study club down the street from you doesn't have that much because they're a smaller, not super they're not like a Spear or a Seattle Study Club. They're like, maybe they just don't have the funds. And so in some situations, coming with a sponsorship, or even not sponsorship, but being able to have the ability to have a table in the room so that you can market your consulting or something like that, I mean, is an option.
And I hear a speaker say to me, my honorarium, the honorarium I normally ask is X amount, but I don't want to get that in the way. I don't want to get it for it to get in the way. I'd like to be able to figure out a way for us to work together. That helps tremendously. It relaxes the situation. It makes it easier to where there's an ability to negotiate there.
Yeah, and there's lots of different ways to negotiate that. So, and the really great point about us having our own contracts and bringing them to especially the larger meetings. So,
before you go on, you mentioned something about a table in the back of the room.
Yeah.
A lot of organizations, including Kentucky Dental Association, have to include, for our members' sake, PACE from AGD for the continuing education. And one of the AGD's rules is that there cannot be a table in the back of the room. What I've done in our organization to work around is ask if we can have a table outside the room, and that's generally workable. But it varies a lot from organization to organization, and again, there's got to be the flexibility.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you that's a really good point. And I find that too, dental meetings, there are thousands of them, and there are of all shapes and sizes, right? Because we could even be talking about, here we're talking about AGD or ADA, like the larger organized associations. But then there's also the local, the specialists that have referring doctor gift seminars. And then there's so many study clubs. And then there's the universities. And there's just so many different types of ways that we can speak. And they all have their own either more rigid or more relaxed ways of handling something specifically like a table in the back of the room. So thank you for mentioning that, because it definitely is not always an option, especially at our bigger meetings. So, but let's talk about what would be options then. Let's say that let's say we normally quote 5,000 and the meeting has just 3,000 in their budget. How can we bridge that gap with sponsorship? How do you see that best working?
There's a lot of different variables with sponsorship. The variables can come from the amount of money that's available to where the money goes to. For instance, there are some dentists that do not want money to come direct to them because there are federal websites that for them that is required to post what money they've received. They want the money to come through the organization. Flip side, some organizations don't want to be handling that money. And I have heard situations where the organization got the money and didn't give it to the speaker.
Yeah.
That doesn't look good on the organization, but that's where contracts come in, and that's where communication comes in.
Exactly. Exactly.
But know to communicate that stuff ahead of time, to where if you're lining up sponsorships and you've been told we can only afford $3,000, and you line up sponsorships and you're expecting that to be able to go over and above the 3,000, and it winds up instead covering your $3,000 honorarium with the organization, then the communication didn't happen.
Right. And then there's also, thank you so much for this, because I've been in the industry now in this particular type of a role with helping speakers and planners and 22 years now. And way back in the day, sponsorship and meeting planning, that contracting felt very different than it does today. And originally, if they did not have in the budget what you were asking, then they would have to go to the sponsor. Like you would say, I normally work with this person, this company, this company, this company. And then they would choose if they're going to go get that money to be able to come to them to be able to pay you. And so around the time of 2008, like with the recession that we had, and like everything kind of shifted in our meetings industry, then we started a lot more of like, well, we'll do the legwork for you. We'll go reach out to our sponsors. And I feel like that has continued on now. And so there's this additional piece of saying, yes, I will work with, for instance, Kentucky Dental Association at the 3,000, and writing into the contract that speaker name is free to, reach out to their sponsors to be able to bridge that gap. Whether speaker actually does bridge the gap or not, you're still going to be contracted with that organization for what they had in their budget. And I've seen that done a lot over the years. I did have a question in that for you. How does that feel from the meeting planner perspective? Does that feel like that's an easier way to go about it? Oh, and the second question on this was, what about people who go above and beyond? So let's say that the situation was 5,000 is what they asked, 3,000 is what the planner had in their budget, but then they went out and brought in 4,000 in sponsorship. Like what do we need to do? Have you seen that situation?
I have seen that situation, and for me, I'm fine with that, but there's got to be the communication.
Does it need to be written in the contract?
Is it okay if I have this happen?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do that, then it can look bad on you as a speaker.
What do you think we need to do as far as contracting around that? Would it just be that, do we just still say that the speaker name will be seeking their own sponsorship, and we just don't really define how much that is, like to bridge that gap and just leave it as that? What do you think? I know we're just talking like our opinions, right?
Yeah, because we're not going to affect what the industry does, for sure. That would be an ideal situation, yes.
Yeah. So again, communication.
Yes.
This is such an important topic. Thank you. I know this is whenever we start talking the money, that we get everybody's attention because we're all trying to figure out the best way to move forward with contracts and sponsors. So other thoughts on that before we leave the contracting piece?
You were talking about what do organizations prefer on whether the organization is contacting sponsorships directly or whether the meeting, or whether the speaker is. It depends on the size of the organization. A small organization, I tried for my Kentucky Dental Association to set things up where the meeting planner would line up sponsorships, and we had a change in executive directors, and that ED just drew a line in the sand and said, we're not going to do this anymore. We don't have time.
Yeah, it is a time thing. It is a
And
time
and
factor.
so I had to. I'm at the Kentucky Dental Association level. I'm dependent enough on sponsorships that I'm straightforward with speakers that I'm talking to, and I say, we're heavily dependent on sponsorships. Do you have sponsors? And just discuss it from square one. I know Hawaii Dental Association
Yeah.
has, for longer than I've been a meeting planner, required that you line up your own sponsorships and expenses before they will schedule you as a speaker.
And there's no honorarium.
And there's
No.
and then people still really
But
want to
it's
speak there
Hawaii.
because of where it is.
It's
I haven't managed to be able to move Kentucky to an island to be able to pull that out to a tropical island.
It's lovely in Kentucky. Kentucky is lovely. But
But
you
it's
know,
not a tropical island, and we don't have ocean beaches.
no, it's not allowed. That's fun. Well, thank you. That's really helpful. Now, one final question. From the standpoint of like communication and making it easy, you know, cooperating, what are your thoughts around that speakers need to know and working with planners?
Communication and cooperation. It's much like a marriage. If you're the type of person that doesn't communicate with your spouse, significant other, you're probably going to have difficulty with a meeting planner and an organization as well, and set yourself up for problems. If you don't listen well, if you don't pay attention to the deadlines, if you feel you're better than that stuff, it's going to hold you back as a speaker.
I know for years I've heard from my meeting planner friends, their frustration around, if we ask for 50 words in a bio, we don't mean send the whole page. You know, if we ask for a certain thing, we don't mean, because then they, as the planner, need to go through and edit your bio down.
And you create work for the meeting planner. Yes.
That's right. I mean, it's frustrating. Or if when they ask for something in a certain format, they do mean that format. And I know that from the planner perspective, sometimes it's frustrating. I know speakers are notoriously late. This is what I've heard for many years, late getting their materials in. And I also recognize from the speaker consultant side that they're running and going a mile a minute, right? Like they're on the planes or doing all the things. So I think it's about just trying to do your best to do your best. Would you agree?
It is. And there's some situations where you've got to ship something to the meeting, and if there's not attention to detail there and it winds up not getting there in time, it can mean the difference between your presentation happening or not happening. So if you're shipping something to the meeting, the day that you ship it, send the tracking information to the meeting planner too.
Oh, that's really helpful. That's a great idea. All right, my friend. Well, was there anything else you would like to talk about today? I know that I had made a note. You had a wonderful handout from our meeting in January. Were you wanting to share that, or I'm trying to?
If anybody would like that handout, the easiest way is to just send me a email. My email, I'm sure you'll be able to put in the notes of the podcast. And I'm glad that so many people have helped me, and I'm glad to help others.
Thank you so much for that. And I'd love to draw attention to, with your speaking background and where your focus is now. You have a great website, Dr. Moorhead, Moorhead, Dr. Moorhead, Moorhead.com. You can learn more about BJ and his solutions. Also, StreamDent, is it StreamDent.com?
StreamDent.com, StreamDent. The story of StreamDent, back in 2009, when I was first doing IV sedation, I won't give you the whole long story, but bottom line is I had a near crisis situation, and I panicked, which you never do in an emergency. And it taught me instantly the need for more stability. And that's when I started using checklists. And it's like, here's the elevator speech. If you're getting on a plane today and you find out that the pilot and the co-pilot refuse to run their safety checklist, do you want to stay on the plane? No. But we run our dental offices that way every day. So I created cloud-based software that's customizable checklist for running a dental office. Everything we do, clinical and business office. And my users tell me what I've experienced too. The industry standard for bringing somebody into a dental office that doesn't have experience is for it to take 3 to 6 months for them to really be able to work on their own or be able to look it up on their own. And with the StreamDent, I can accomplish that routinely in 30 days.
Wow.
So it's good. It's great for onboarding. It's terrific for keeping your team to where you error-proof the office and you increase the efficiency and the bottom line.
That's fabulous. That's very cool. And isn't a life, this is how we learn, right? We have these experiences and then we turn around and we want to not do that again. And in the process, you've created something amazing for the industry. So thank you for that. You mentioned IV. Talk to us about your IV sedation course.
Myself and another dentist partnered starting in 2022 to create a program to teach other dentists moderate IV sedation. It's a 90-hour course, which is what is required by the American Dental Association. It's accepted in most states. It is very competitively priced. And where we've got 2 dentists that actually practice dentistry instead of in an academic setting, we teach all the materials that are required, but we teach it from a very practical standpoint. And we get really good marks from our dentists that take the course on the practicality.
Oh, fabulous. Well, that's great. We have a lot going, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate you.
Would you include the website of the IV sedation training for dentists in your
I will.
notes,
I'll put all
please?
your sites in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I really appreciate you taking time with us today, BJ. Before we go, is there any remaining thoughts that you'd love for speakers to know about working with meeting planners to wrap us up? Is there anything we haven't covered?
Be genuine, show your charisma. And there's one thing we didn't cover. This is not a gem, but be professional and have professional attire in front of the group. If you're trying to look too pizzazz, too sexy, whatever, that's distracting. It's not going to help you.
I've heard before someone say too that we should dress a click above our audience. So if our audience is in business casual, we should bring it up a level.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the Dental Speaker Podcast. We really appreciate you being a part of our community and sharing your valuable knowledge. If anyone would like to reach out to BJ, his website is drmoorhead, MORHEAD.com. And I'll put those, again, that link in there. The email address is long, but I'm going to share it. It's dr.m at Flemingsburg Dentist. I have that right, .com. I'm doing that by memory.
I'll give you a faster one, dr.m at streamdent.com.
That's even better. dr.m at streamdent.com to reach out to BJ for that handout, which will recap a lot of what we talked about today and will be beneficial for you. Again, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, everyone be well and take good care of yourself, everyone. And proud of each of you for shining your light and bringing, really changing lives in this profession. It's when you stop and think about it, BJ, all of these speakers are just out there sharing their knowledge and really helping dentists help patients. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Speakers are a blessing. Yes.
Yeah, they really are. So keep being you, keep doing you, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Vanessa.